The canyon had never been quiet, but that morning it felt as if the land itself was holding its breath. Ethan Cole slowed his horse at the ridge, uneasy before he even understood why. The wind carried the bitter smell of smoke and iron, and when he looked down into the valley, his stomach tightened. Bodies were scattered across the red earth, Apache warriors, dozens of them, 70 at least. They weren't arranged like fallen men from a battle. There were no lines, no charge, no defense. They lay where they had stood, where they had knelt, where some had tried to run. Rifles lay abandoned. Bows were snapped in half. One man still clutched a white strip of cloth in his hand. Ethan dismounted slowly, his boots crunching against stone, far too loud in the stillness. He had ridden through burned towns and skirmish sites before. But this was different. These men had not been fighting. Many had empty hands. Some were on their knees, heads bowed, as if they had believed peace might actually be possible. Whoever had done this wanted them erased, not defeated. Ethan's hand tightened around his rifle as he moved deeper into the canyon, eyes scanning the cliffs. He felt watched, though no one stirred. Then he heard it, a faint, wet sound, almost lost in the wind. A breath that didn't belong to the dead. Behind a blood-smeared boulder, he found her. An Apache woman lay half-hidden in the dust, her dark hair matted with blood and dirt. An arrow had torn into her side, and her leg was twisted at an unnatural angle. She tried to push herself backward when she saw him, teeth clenched, eyes blazing with fear and fury. Even wounded, she was ready to fight. Ethan raised both hands and took a slow step back. He'd learned long ago that fear could kill faster than bullets. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly, though he doubted she believed him. Why would she, standing among her slaughtered people? She tried to crawl away, leaving a dark smear in the dust, but pain stopped her. Ethan glanced at his horse, standing nervously above them. He had water, a rifle, and one horse, only one. Night would come soon, and whoever had done this might return to finish what they started. Ethan understood then that this moment would demand more from him than survival. It would demand a choice. The sun slid lower, staining the canyon walls a deep, burning red. Ethan could feel time closing in on him, the way it always did in this land. Night was never gentle out here. He crouched beside the wounded woman, keeping his movements slow, deliberate. She watched him closely, her hand trembling as she tried to keep pressure on her side. Pain had drained some of the fire from her eyes, but not her will. Ethan tore a long strip from the tail of his shirt and pressed it against her wound. She hissed softly but did not pull away. That small trust felt heavier than any rifle he'd ever carried. He checked her leg next, swallowing hard at the sight of it bent wrong. She wouldn't be walking, not tonight, maybe not for weeks. He looked toward the distant line of trees where a river cut through the land. If she could reach it, she might live. His horse stamped the ground impatiently, sensing danger in the air. That horse had carried Ethan through dust storms, gunfights, and 3 hard winters. It was the only thing he owned that still mattered. Without it, the desert would take him piece by piece. Ethan stood, made his decision before fear could argue with it. He helped the woman sit up, ignoring the way his arms shook under her weight. She cried out once as he lifted her, then bit down on the sound, refusing to give pain the satisfaction. With careful steps, he guided her to the horse and boosted her into the saddle. The animal shifted but held steady. She stared at him, confusion breaking through the suspicion. Her lips moved before words came. Why?" Ethan adjusted the reins and pressed his canteen into her hands. "Follow the stars east," he said. "You'll hit water before morning." She looked down at him then, truly looked, and for a moment he thought she might refuse. Instead, her fingers closed around his wrist, tight and desperate. "They will kill you," she said in rough English. "Maybe," Ethan replied, "but they'll definitely kill you if you stay." He stepped back, forcing her hand to release him, and slapped the horse gently on the flank. The animal hesitated, then turned and began moving toward the open land. The woman looked over her shoulder again and again as she rode away, until darkness swallowed her shape. Ethan stood alone in the canyon as the last light faded. He chambered around, slung his rifle, and started walking in the opposite direction. Each step felt like a farewell, to safety, to certainty, to life itself. Yet beneath the fear there was something else, a quiet, stubborn peace. Ethan drifted in and out of consciousness as the cold crept over the canyon floor. His mouth was dry, his legs numb, and every sound felt distant, as if the world were pulling away from him. When hooves finally reached his ears, he thought at first it was death arriving to finish its work. He forced his eyes open and saw shadows moving through the pale grey light of dawn. Shapes resolved into riders, dozens of them, circling slowly, silently. Apache warriors. He tried to sit up, failed, and settled for keeping his hands where they could be seen. There was no running left in him anyway. Faces watched him from horseback, unreadable, painted with the colors of mourning and war. He waited for the first shot, the first blade. Instead, a familiar figure dismounted. The woman stepped forward, her movement stiff but steady. Her wounds had been cleaned and bound with care, and though pain still marked her face, she stood with quiet strength. Her eyes met Ethan's, and recognition passed between them. She spoke to the warriors in a firm, flowing language that echoed off the canyon walls. The men listened. Some glanced at the bodies scattered around them. Others looked back at Ethan with new curiosity. Ethan swallowed, his heart hammering. He understood now that these were not the dead he had seen the day before. These were survivors, men who had returned to honor their fallen brothers. The woman turned back to him and knelt despite her injury. "My name is Ayana," she said. "You saved my life." One of the warriors dismounted and approached Ethan slowly. He bent, picked up Ethan's fallen rifle, and placed it gently across his chest. It was not a threat. It was respect. Ayana continued, her voice steady. "Those warriors you saw laid down their weapons to stop a blood feud. They believed peace would end the killing. The men who murdered them wore no tribe. They wanted war to continue." A murmur passed through the riders. Another warrior brought Ethan's horse forward, reins in hand. The animal nickered softly, pressing its nose against Ethan's shoulder. Relief hit him so hard he had to blink it away. Ayana gestured toward the open canyon, where the rising sun painted a path of light between the rocks. "Mercy is not forgotten among my people," she said. "You walked into death so I could live. Now you will leave in peace." The warriors turned their horses aside, opening a clear road. Ethan pushed himself up, legs shaking, and mounted slowly. He looked back once, meeting Ayana's gaze. No words could carry what passed between them. As he rode away, Ethan understood that survival alone did not make a man brave. Sometimes courage was choosing compassion, when the world expected hatred and trusting that it might someday return.